Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. We have got a lot to get to. Wednesday edition, Outkick the coverage. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day wherever you may be. If you haven't already seen it, Baker Mayfield teeing off on local Cleveland media. World Series screw up last night in Game 6. What's going to happen in Game 7? Tua, how healthy is he going to be against LSU? What's going to happen there? Donald Trump, in the latest Politico morning consult poll, surging against his Democratic rivals. Jameis, potentially a GM, whatever ridiculousness is going on, defending him to the ends of the earth. We got Mattress Mack, who has got $20 million on the outcome of Game 7, and Obama slams woke culture. All of this rolling in together. We got a ton of topics to hit, and I appreciate all of you hanging out with me. This is Outkick the Show, and I am Clay Travis. All right, this is crazy. Baker Mayfield has been a major topic for the last couple of years in the NFL, and before that, he was a major topic in college football for the last couple of years. I love him for the degree to which he projects polarizing opinions. Some people love Baker Mayfield. They believe he's going to be a phenomenal NFL quarterback. Other people, like myself, are skeptical of Baker Mayfield, and the reason why I'm skeptical is I don't think he has the mental makeup that has traditionally led to big success in the NFL. A quarterback needs to, in my opinion, be a cerebral assassin. You have to be the kind of guy who, by and large, does not vacillate emotionally from one play to the next or one game to the next. Baker Mayfield plays on the edge, and that edge sometimes works in his favor, but what I would say is it often creates opportunities for him to either become wildly successful or wildly unsuccessful. There's no middle ground. And he plays in such an effervescent style that if you know what I am talking about, you'll break it down. It'll make sense to you. I don't want a guy at quarterback who is giving his opponent more incentive to want to break him. The NFL is so wildly competitive already that every single defensive player wants to break the quarterback over his knee like Bane broke Batman over his knee. They won't say it publicly, but they want to pick the quarterback up and they want to break his back on their knee. That's the goal of every defensive player that's trying to get to the quarterback. They hate quarterbacks. They want to break them. I said before the season started, when Baker Mayfield decided to take shots at Daniel Jones, I said, I want you to just follow me down this path here. Name me something that Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, or Peyton Manning have ever said that has incentivized the defense to make them want to break him even more than they already do. In their entire careers, I can't remember Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or Russell Wilson ever giving an opponent bulletin board material. It's not because they're not confident. It's not because they're not doing all their preparation. It's simply because they know if you get someone to focus even more intensely preparing for you, it's more likely that you are going to actually lose, right? It's just a simple competitive advantage. Baker Mayfield has consistently provided ammunition for his critics and for defensive players to want to break him. Let me give you an analogy. People said, I love the way Cam Newton plays football. I think Cam Newton is a luminescent star, but I think he's a front runner like Baker Mayfield. When everything goes perfect, Cam Newton can win the MVP, he can advance to the Super Bowl, and everything around him can be all roses and beautiful rainbows. But as soon as they start to confront significant adversity, things go in the opposite direction just as quickly. That is what Baker Mayfield is. Baker Mayfield is the guy who, after he loses the Super Bowl, can't sit and answer questions because he doesn't have the emotional maturity to be able to internalize his feelings and not immediately project them. Cam Newton storms out of the post-game Super Bowl press conference because he doesn't have the emotional maturity to be able to handle losing. Everybody wants to lose desperately. Russell Wilson throws an interception that costs his team the Super Bowl and immediately confronts and discusses it in what had to be a gut-wrenching fashion. There are two different ways to handle failure and success. You can be a middle-of-the-road guy who's not going to allow extreme failure or extreme success to drive you in either direction, or you can be Baker Mayfield and Cam Newton. I want to find my quarterback who is a Peyton Manning, who is a Tom Brady, who is a Russell Wilson. I think there's early signs that Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, and certainly Drew Brees is in that camp, that all of those guys are field generals who are not going to allow the moment to overcome them. When you play on the edge, when you play with emotion, what you are in danger of is spiraling out of control. Your quarterback can't spiral out of control. That is what is happening right now with Baker Mayfield. Go back and listen. Go back and watch everything that I said about Baker Mayfield. I said whatever emotion he experiences, he takes it to the next level. If he's frustrated, he's going to be twice as frustrated as the average quarterback. If he's joyful, he's going to be twice as joyful as the average quarterback. I don't think that works over time in the NFL. I think you need to be relatively even-keeled in order to win at a high level in the NFL. Could I be wrong? Certainly. There are relatively few. Maybe Brett Favre. Maybe Brett Favre is a guy who was emotional in general. But relatively speaking, Super Bowl winning quarterbacks are not emotional guys. They just aren't. It almost never happens that is the case. And so as you break this down and think about it going forward, the Browns made a mistake, I think, when they traded for Odell Beckham Jr. because what they did was they combined mercurial, emotional people in the locker room and put them there as well. All right? So I think all of this factors in. I'm an emotional guy. That's one reason my show works, because I don't hide from emotion, because I dive right into my emotion. But if I'm trying to make logical decisions, I try not to allow the emotion to take over me. Okay? Now, I'm in an emotional medium. I don't think that the quarterback is an emotional position. I think other positions can be emotional. I think you can feed off emotion at defensive back. I think you can feed off of emotion at wide receiver. I think at quarterback, you can't really feed off of emotion. And so what's happened is, as negativity has descended upon Baker Mayfield, all of that negativity has grown. He's not feeling dangerous. He's not making jokes. He's getting antagonized by questions from local Cleveland media. He had to be smarter, recognize what's immediately going to happen here, and yet again, Baker Mayfield let the media get his goat. And I got to tell you this. Some people are going to defend Baker Mayfield, and they're going to come after this media guy. That's great for this media guy. Baker Mayfield throwing a fit because of his question is the best thing that could happen to a media guy. Take it from a media guy. If somebody is so triggered by a question that you are asking, it's probably a sign that you are asking a question that he doesn't want to answer, or that he knows there's an underlying element of truth to what you are asking him as well. So I'm not a Baker Mayfield believer. I talked about this earlier. I happened to find out he blocked me on Twitter. I've never even talked about Baker Mayfield in the preseason. He's too aware of the noise. Too aware of the external noise, in my opinion, to be successful. He's too focused on what people are saying and not focused enough on what he is doing. So I am not a Baker Mayfield guy. I'm not a believer in him. I think the Cleveland situation in general is a mess. I think the Freddie Kitchens hire has proven to be a disaster. Jimmy Haslam, thank God we didn't let him hire the Tennessee head coach. He has proven to be a bad manager, bad decision maker. He stuck with Hugh Jackson. Then he goes with Freddie Kitchens. Freddie Kitchens is in over his head. This is a team that has spiraled out of control. Doesn't mean they're going to be awful, because the schedule gets a lot easier on the backside. But I would just say in general, this is a major issue going forward for Baker Mayfield. Somebody else just said I happen to look over. Plus, he's not a big, strong, physical quarterback. I spend less time worrying about what my quarterback looks like and less time worried about the physics of my quarterback. Drew Brees is not a big, strong quarterback. He's been phenomenal. Russell Wilson is not a big, strong quarterback. He's been phenomenal. Quarterbacks can win in different ways, Ultimately, what matters is whether you can pass on 3rd and 8 when everybody knows you're passing, and Baker Mayfield can't do it. And I don't know if that's going to change, but certainly it's not changed right now. This is a bad look for the Browns, a bad look for Baker Mayfield. And if you want to have some more fun with me, I'm going to go after Rachel Bonnetta, Baker Mayfield's #1 defender, today on Lock It In at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific. Okay, we got to talk about this crazy allegation down in Tampa. I don't know if you guys watched this. I tweeted it out. But Jason Licht Jason Light is the GM of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is an ardent Jameis Winston defender. This is a crazy story, all right? If you're sitting around and you're wondering to yourself, how in the world is Jameis Winston still starting as a quarterback, despite the fact that he's turned the ball over 10 times in the last 2 weeks, that he's thrown alongside of Baker Mayfield 12 interceptions? And by the way, there's an easy analogy you can draw between Jameis Winston and Baker Mayfield. Both of them are wildly talented, but also wildly undisciplined and poor decision makers in both college and the NFL so far. If you want to draw an analogy between those two guys, look at the way they play football and also translate it outside of the world of football. Now, Baker hasn't gotten in serious jeopardy like Jameis Winston did, the same degree, but he still got wrecked by that police officer in Fayetteville when he tried to run away from him, right? The decision-making in crucible moments is just questionable. And so Jameis Winston has thrown 12 interceptions, the same number of interceptions that Baker Mayfield has thrown. They are leading the NFL in interceptions right now. Jameis Winston has also fumbled 8 times. So in 7 games so far, Jameis Winston has turned the ball over potentially 20 times in 7 games. Almost 3 turnovers per game. And if you're sitting around, you're saying, why in the world do they not have a decent backup? The answer is because last year they had a decent backup. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is a better quarterback than Jameis Winston. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wanted Ryan Fitzpatrick to be the starter instead of Jameis Winston. And when Jameis got the job back, he didn't deserve it. So this year, with Bruce Arians, Jason Licht, everybody else, they said, hey, we're going to wipe away every other option for Jameis Winston. Like the Tennessee Titans went and got Ryan Tannehill. The first sign that Marcus Mariota is not playing well, they bench Marcus Mariota, they bring in Ryan Tannehill because they have a good backup. The Bucs don't have a backup at all. They have no talent behind Jameis Winston. And so you're wondering to yourself, why in the world are the Bucs so committed here? The answer is because the GM who drafted Jameis Winston is utterly convinced that Jameis Winston is going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's the only possible answer. And there is a troll Twitter account which has tweeted like 20,000 times, obsessively, all the time. The dude wrote a 400-page book about why Jameis Winston is great. He tweets about Jameis Winston all the time. He says he can't tweet during the games until he watches film, everything. It's clear this guy is closely connected to Jameis Winston. And what's interesting is, whenever I would tweet out any criticism of Jameis Winston, this guy would come in and he would give you all these detailed defenses of why Jameis Winston wasn't to blame for anything. Tweeted me hundreds of times. Hundreds of times this guy has tweeted me. And finally I was like, dude, I don't want you blowing up my mentions. I'll block somebody if they tweet me hundreds of times and I recognize their name. I didn't even know about this story until I saw it this morning, last night. And so this dude has defended Jameis Winston. He has access to game film. And I've kind of suspected this for a while, because anytime I'll criticize Jameis Winston, there'll be different people slide into my mentions, and they're insanely specific in the way they defend Jameis Winston. I'll give you an example. Jameis Winston throws an interception. I tweet, bad throw by Jameis. Later on that day, somebody will slide into my mentions and be like, hey, that wasn't Jameis's fault. The slot receiver was supposed to run the post, and instead he ran, whatever it was, a slant. And as a result, Jameis Winston was throwing where the receiver was supposed to be. Like, this happens all the time in a way that never happens for any other quarterback. When I say anything negative about Jameis Winston, somebody, it's usually one of these anonymous troll Twitter accounts, will come slide in the DMs and come slide in the mentions, and they are insanely specific. Like I'm watching game film and trying to defend Jameis. And a couple of times I've even responded, thanks, Jameis, or thanks, Bucs management, because it's so specific in its defense that it feels like we might have a Philadelphia 76ers president situation. I got to get my throat back here. Or we might have a Kevin Durant situation or a Mitt Romney situation. Hold on a sec. The guy has written a 400-page book. He has never been seen publicly. And you can go watch the video. His voice sounds almost identical. The voice sounds almost identical to Jason Licht, the GM of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you haven't listened to the audio, you need to go back and check it out. This is an absolute propagandist that Jameis Winston has on his staff. And if you're wondering, I don't know who it is. It's somebody in the Bucs general office. It's somebody in Jameis Winston's family. It's some advisor of Jameis Winston. I don't know who it is. It's somebody very close to Jameis Winston. Dude wrote a 400-page self-published book arguing that Jameis Winston is a Hall of Fame quarterback. And this is wild. It's got an endorsement written by Jameis Winston's personal trainer. So I don't know who it is, but somebody close to Jameis Winston is in the social media streets defending him all the time. And it might be the Bucs GM himself. If you haven't gone and watched this video, you need to. It's incredible. Yes, the video is on YouTube. You can go find it. Just go find my Twitter account at Clay Travis. Scroll down and check it out. But it's strange. And it starts to explain why Jameis Winston is being so utterly defended, because if Jameis is not the answer, then Jason Licht, the GM of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is going to get fired, because he went and risked everything by taking Jameis Winston #1 overall, and he's trying to give him every possible opportunity to succeed, and it ain't working. So I don't know where Jameis is going to be going forward, but the entire thing is an utter mess. Speaking of utter messes, how about what happened in World Series Game 6 last night? 7th inning, top of the 7th inning, got a tough play at first base. Guy is running down the first base line, and the umpire utterly blows it. Throws the ball. The ball's a bad throw. Hits the base runner, but the base runner is going to be safe anyway. And this is an utter failure, okay? Complete and total failure by Major League Baseball. We have like a 5-minute stoppage. We think maybe a review, but then that play's not reviewable. Joe Torre said that the guy was out because he interfered with the first baseman, which makes no sense because he has a right to the base the same way that the first baseman does. He hit it right square in the middle of first base. This is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, a bad call. Now, the end result is that the Nationals went on and won anyway, okay? I understand there's a small segment of you that are truthers on this. 95% of you agree that it's an awful call. 5% of you want to argue on the other side, and the 5% is insanely active. They're like the Jameis Winston Twitter defenders. But when you look at this play, this was, I'm going to have to block this guy because he is saying the same thing over and over again, and this is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to have to block him. It's an awful call. An indefensible call, no way to support it. And by the way, people say, why do you block somebody? If somebody says the same thing over and over again and they are an idiot, they are blocked forever. Never allowed to comment again on the show. Never allowed to come in here and comment in any way. Wiped out, Clay Kyle, got the scope out, and wiping you out. Okay? This was, we got another one. We got a couple of truthers. I really think that sometimes Major League Baseball or the leagues will go out and they will pay trolls. I think this happens all the time. Bot armies. They will pay bot armies, and there's like 15 dudes that will obsessively defend the indefensible. I see it happen on social media all the time. Everyone out there who will defend the indefensible, I really do think that they will pay somebody to go in and try to artificially influence the debate so that it looks like it's more competitive than it actually is. I really do believe that that happens on a regular basis, even in the universe of baseball. All right? So, it's an awful decision. Major League Baseball then spends 5 or 6 minutes. I don't know what they're doing on the phone. They're talking about an official protest, talking down the line, all of these aspects. Then the manager, Dave Martinez, right, for the Nationals, comes out, and he is there, and he gets tossed out. The Major League Baseball avoided a complete black eye over this. Now, I will say, the end result is I am much more interested in watching Game 7 of this series now than I would have been if there hadn't been this controversy in the first place. So I think the end result is, in a series that hasn't necessarily appealed to the masses, this is such a controversial situation, much like Soto taking the bat to first base and all this associated aspects of that. This controversy actually makes me want to watch Game 7 tonight. I'm not lying about this. I took a 3-hour nap today. I sleep like 4 hours a night. I don't get any sleep. But I was like, you know what? This game's not going to end till maybe midnight, my time, tonight. I said, I'm going to take a big nap today so that I'm able to sit there and watch Game 7 of the World Series. And I never ordinarily would have been willing to do that. But I know I got to be up early to do my radio show tomorrow on Halloween of all days. It's going to be a zoo. I got to watch Game 7. Then I got to get up. So I'm ecstatic to watch this. Baseball screwed up to such an extent that the controversy made me more likely to watch it. I want the Nats to win. I'd like to see the Nats win because the Astros won World Series 2 years ago. I would rather see Scherzer and the Nats, given all their failures, win. Plus, I like the storyline of Bryce Harper, who has to be feverishly rooting against the Nationals. I like the idea of the Nationals letting Bryce Harper leave for the Phillies and then immediately winning the World Series without him. I think that's a great storyline for baseball going forward. Bryce Harper can't win anything with the Nationals. The year he leaves, boom, everybody is able to actually watch and the Nationals win a title. All right, a couple other different things here. I got several different topics still to hit. I don't know if you guys saw Nick Saban's press conference today, but Nick Saban said about Tua that he's not sure, essentially, whether Tua is going to be able to play on next Saturday. I think, by the way, I'm going to go down to this game. I'm going to go down to Tuscaloosa. Can't miss LSU #1 against Bama #2, just like in 2011. I think I'm going to be down in T-Town in Tuscaloosa watching this game in person. Can't wait for that. But if Tua's not playing, this adds all sorts of wrinkles to the playoff race, to everything else in general. My gut tells me Tua's going to play, and Nick Saban is using this in some way to try and create uncertainty for LSU. But I don't understand the real value here because it's not like you have two different style quarterbacks. If you had Tua and Jalen Hurts, and you knew that Jalen Hurts was more of a mobile quarterback, then maybe that makes sense because you're making them have to prepare for two different styles of play. But there aren't two different styles of play here. So I think the challenging factor is if Tua doesn't play and Alabama goes on and wins out to go 11-1, what is the overall breakdown of the playoff race? Do you give Alabama a pass because Tua doesn't play? If Tua comes back in and later in the season is dominant? Because we've heard a lot of talk about how you have to value and factor in injuries. Or does this knock Alabama out of the playoff race? Because I don't think that Alabama, without Tua, can win this football game. I don't think they can. I also don't think you can gamble on this game unless you know whether or not Tua is going to play. Because to me, this line, I think LSU is the better team anyway. But Alabama playing at home with Tua, I would be more inclined to take Alabama when this line is going to be around 6 or 7 points. To me, I think I'm going to bet LSU no matter what, because even if LSU loses, I took LSU Monday, on Lock It In at 7-1 to win the title, because I think 11-1 LSU is in the college football playoff. I think their resume will be good enough, given the Oklahoma loss, that they will be in the playoff. I'm not as confident about 11-1 Alabama. I think 12-1 Alabama would. If Alabama went 12-0 and lost in the SEC title game, I think they would be in. But 11-1 Alabama, if Tua doesn't play against LSU, or if he's so hobbled he can't really play, I think that's a tough situation to analyze. All right. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I thought it was intriguing. I have been telling you for a long time that ultimately the election is going to come down in 2020 to what? The Big Ten states. So the Big Ten is going to decide who the next president of the United States is. And if you break it down in that perspective, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. Essentially, the Big Ten states, you tell me who's going to win those 5, I will tell you who the next president of the United States is going to be. This is interesting. There's a Politico and a Morning Consult poll that's out. And one of the things that they've been trumpeting a lot is, the Democratic candidate is ahead of Donald Trump. And I've been saying for a while, you can't take that into account. Because Donald Trump is going to drag whatever Democratic candidate there is down into the mud with him. And it's ultimately going to come down to what happens in those 5 states. And all the favorability numbers of whoever the Democratic nominee is, it's all going to circle back down. And effectively, we're going to have a 50-50 election beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it will be won in the margins by a couple of close states, most of them being in the Midwest. This is intriguing. And this is where the mainstream media, I think, is doing a failure for you. And if you spend a lot of time on social media, I also think this is where you're getting an artificial version of reality, because it's been proven that Twitter is about 2/3 liberal, right? The people who are active on Twitter are way to the left of the average American population, okay? So, Joe Biden against Donald Trump, 44-33. He had an 11-point lead in June. Now in October, the lead is down to 5 points. Biden's lead of 11 points, which existed in June head-to-head against Trump, is now down to 5. Bernie Sanders' lead of 10 points against Donald Trump, it's now down to 2 points. Elizabeth Warren's actually losing right now to Donald Trump by 1 point, according to this most recent poll. Kamala Harris, her campaign is basically over. She is now down 5 points to Donald Trump head-to-head. And Mayor Pete is now down 6 points to Donald Trump head-to-head, okay? This is a big deal. Donald Trump has already managed to cut almost all of these Democratic leads in half a year out before we even know who he is going to run against. Pay attention to this. Again, it's coming down to 5 states: Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. You tell me who wins the Big Ten, and I will tell you who is going to be the next president of the United States. The other aspect of this that I think is worth hitting is I want to give props to Barack Obama. Maybe we can grab that clip that I tweeted out last night. Barack Obama went after identity politics and the idea of woke sort of absolutism, for another way of putting it. He went after the cancel culture. And let me say this. I voted for Barack Obama twice. And a lot of people now want to blame Barack Obama for the rise of identity politics. I think that is a flaw, okay? And let me explain why. Barack Obama's identity was an inextricable part of his political talent. But the problem is that the Democrats who have tried to pick up the baton from Barack Obama, i.e. Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, Mayor Pete, Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders, have focused on the identity aspect of Barack Obama's success without noting that he made his identity quintessentially an American story. I.e., Barack Obama sold the idea of, if I, a mixed-race Hawaiian kid with a funky name, can rise to become the president of the United States, then the American dream is truly open to everyone, regardless of what your background is, if you believe in the meritocracy and if you are willing to rise and work and grind. And that is what Barack Obama sold. He sold the quintessential American dream. What happened with Hillary was she tried to take the Obama identity politics and sell it as a reason that she was going to get elected president of the United States, okay? And this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. What the Democrats have taken from Obama since then is we have to create class warfare. We have to create anger among black people. We have to create anger among gay and lesbian people. We have to create fear and anger among Hispanic people. We have to trumpet the idea of fear in order to get elected president, okay? And what we essentially had in 2016 was an identity politics-laden election. And Donald Trump was able to appeal there because the same black people who supported Barack Obama didn't come out and support Hillary Clinton. Really, that's what the election came down to. And that's why so much of the Democratic focus has been upon selling this idea that things are awful. And what I wish Trump was is a better articulator of a worldview which would point out that right now everything is going pretty well in this country. The unemployment rate is lower than it's ever been before. The unemployment rate for blacks, Hispanics, minorities in general is lower than it's ever been before. The stock market is higher than it's ever been before. Per capita income is higher than it's ever been before. Donald Trump is an inarticulate voice for a national conversation we need to have. And I like when I see the statements that Barack Obama made, it reminds me of why I voted for him twice. And by the way, Barack Obama is too conservative to be the nominee right now for the 2020 Democrats, which is why I think the Democrats are painting themselves into a corner in this election. Biden is their best choice because he's not left-wing and crazy. The problem is I'm concerned that Joe Biden might have lost a lot of his intellectual heft. His responses at the debate oftentimes remind me of how you feel when you have been at Thanksgiving with your grandparents. And they start a sentence and you hope they're going to be able to finish that sentence, but you're not really sure whether it's going to finish well, right? You know what I'm talking about? As you get to be 75 or 80 years old, most people don't have the same mental faculty that they used to. Personally, I know we have an under limit. Honestly, you shouldn't be able to be elected president, according to our Constitution, unless you're 35 years old, right? I wish we had an upper age limit too. I wish you couldn't be elected president if you're over the age of 70 as well. That seems like a pretty big 35-year window where we could find somebody to lead the country. I think it's crazy that we are electing anybody over the age of 70 to be a president, right? 35 to 65 or 70 seems like a really valid perspective. And by the way, this isn't crazy or ageism. Lots of boards and companies require people to retire as they reach senior citizen age. I'm not saying those people don't have value or they don't have a great deal of intelligence. They do. I just don't think that at that point in your life, you need to have an entire free world making decisions. I'll just put it to you this way. People are like, oh, I don't know why Ivanka and Jared Kushner are involved in helping Donald Trump be president. How many of you who have a 75-year-old grandparent or have a 75-year-old parent would be comfortable with them running the country? I mean, just honestly. And if you were their son or daughter and they were running the country, wouldn't you want to be trying to help them on a day-to-day basis to run the country? I think the president of the United States should be in his 40s or 50s or 60s at the absolute oldest. So the idea that we might have Joe Biden, who's 76 or whatever the hell he is, running against Donald Trump, who's 73 or 74, is crazy to me. But I think he offers the best chance for Democrats to win. All right. I love all of you. Last point, Mattress Mack. This guy's risking $20 million on tonight's game. We're going to have him on Lock It In. This dude is a marketing genius, but he's also driving me crazy. I find myself rooting for this Mattress Mack guy to lose all of his money because I'm tired of hearing about the bets that he's placing on the Astros to win. Marketing genius, but I want this guy to go bankrupt. I wish he would lose $100 million. I want him to have to sell his company. I'm tired of hearing about him. I'm tired of hearing about him placing bets, and you're going to have to hear about him some more on Lock It In here in a little bit. All right, I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. Kisses to all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Watch the show. Share it with everybody. I love all of you. I'll be on Lock It In about a half hour. See you guys. Love y'all. Love you. Thank you, Facebook.